Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Brandy Vaughan of learntherisk.org, and check out the website. We redesigned it just recently, and I'm going to wait until a few more people come on because I have a very special message for an Australian journalist. Her name is Jane Hansen. She's been pretty infamous in pushing vaccines down in Australia and being particularly vicious to anyone and everyone who wants people and parents to do their real research on vaccines, which every child deserves, right? Every child deserves parents that actually do the real research on vaccines, because when I was working in pharma, I saw firsthand that basically doctors do not do their own research after they're in medical school, and medical schools are actually partly funded by pharmaceutical companies now. So we all know that we can't trust our doctors to do the research. And so many parents throw up their hands and they say, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to trust the doctor. And that's not really fair to the children. So, you know, it's been a bit crazy down under in Australia. But I have an announcement, and the announcement in news is that Learn the Risk made the news down in Australia, thanks to Jane Hansen. So, Jane, personally, I would like to thank you for the free advertising for learntherisk.org, and I hope that everybody who saw the article goes to the website, and actually, I hope we save some kids out of it. So thank you so much for the free advertising, and I'm going to show everybody the article, and then I'm going to talk to you, and then I'm going to show you that actually the Sunday Telegraph, which the article appeared in, is the most read newspaper in Australia. So thank you, Jane. I mean, I probably couldn't have afforded advertising in that newspaper, especially with the donations that are slowing down. So thank you so much for the free advertising, and I appreciate it. And sorry I didn't get back to your email. It was a little aggressive, so I chose to meditate on that a bit and didn't get back to you. But thank you for putting learntherisk.org in the article, and thank you for putting a picture of our card, because it may save some babies out there, and I hope it does. So thanks again. Anyway, here it is. I'm going to show you the article. And then we're going to talk about some SIDS things that every parent needs to know before they vaccinate. So here's the article in the Daily Telegraph. This went out on Sunday. So it says, Mom finds anti-vaxxers propaganda inside baby formula from Woolworths supermarket. So let's just go into propaganda for a second. Propaganda is something that's pretty much false and can be pushed, let's say, by a corporation selling a product. Like vaccines, and believe me, vaccines are worth $60 billion already, or well, in the coming years, and they're a huge moneymaker for pharma. But anyway, back to the article. Well, the point is that where's the real propaganda coming from? So back to the article. Jane Hansen, says, in a new law, anti-vaxxers have been caught tampering with baby formula tins. Actually, it wasn't tampering. That makes it sound like there were cards inside the products, and that is actually not true. The seals were all closed. And this poor mother who had, as it says in here, just vaccinated her little girl. So she was probably upset because she's one of those parents that's trusting the doctors. And basically, this card, thanks again, Jane, for giving us the free advertising, because this may change some parents' minds. So anyway, this poor mother found this in the formula, or not in the formula, but on the can. And there is the Learn the Risk card that says, your job is to protect me. Sudden infant deaths, SIDS, spike after vaccines. This is not a coincidence. So again, the poor mom just vaccinated, and she probably felt really guilty, because most of us, let's face it, when a needle comes towards our child, we have an instinct to protect. And, you know, we see all these videos of people saying, oh, I was crying when they vaccinated my child because it felt so wrong. And we have those instincts for a reason. We are here to protect our children. So this poor mom just trusted the doctor instead of her own instincts, so she was probably a little upset to realize that the real protection for your child is not listening to the doctor who's selling a product for pharmaceutical companies. So anyway, it goes into saying that multiple studies, oh, Jane, sorry, you forgot to put in multiple studies from the vaccine makers or others who profit off vaccines have found no connection, of course, right? Because that would hurt their bottom line. So we really have to look at the research that's independent and not pharmaceutical funded, and we're going to look at that in a minute. So here we go. And then it goes down. Where is it? Oop. I guess it doesn't. Let's see, where is it? Here. Oh. Anyway, it says learn the risk. Oh, where is it? Oh, my computer's acting funny. Well, anyway, it says the cards were from learntherisk.org. So I have gotten lots more hits on the website from Australia Today. Oh, there it is, right there. The card claims sudden infant death syndrome is caused by vaccines and gives links to an American anti-vax group. We're actually a nonprofit organization called learntherisk.org. Jane, so sorry, but you did forget to mention that it was founded by me, Brandy Vaughan, who is an ex-pharma rep, and I actually used to work for Merck, one of the largest vaccine makers in the world. Next time, please put that in the article so people really understand why there is a group called learntherisk.org and why everybody should learn the risk of vaccines and all pharmaceutical products. Now, for those who may be finding learntherisk.org and me for the first time, well, let's go into some of the SIDS research and let's look at the real science, Jane. Oh, but before we do that, let's look at the list of newspapers in Australia by circulation. So how much free advertising did we get? Well, this is weekday print, so we're going to go to the Sunday print papers because it was in the Sunday Telegraph. So right there, Sunday Telegraph. And if you look, it is a very well distributed newspaper, 378,000 give or take. See the Sunday Telegraph, oh, right there, Sunday Telegraph on Sundays. And in fact, if you look at the other distributions, it is the most widely distributed Sunday newspaper. So again, I mean, Jane, I just don't know what to say. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I mean, it's like an early Christmas present. So thank you for putting learntherisk.org in there. I mean, this is gonna save lives. So thank you so much, Jane. She's like one of my new heroes. All right, there's the distribution we got from that article. And now we're gonna go into where people go, maybe if they saw learntherisk.org. Hopefully, they went to our website, and we're going through a redesign, guys. So if you haven't seen it in a while, you should definitely check it out. And I hope they go to the resources and they go to the SIDS page, because this is where you're going to see the real research. You're going to see the research that Jane, given her love for pharmaceutical companies, is probably not going to show you, but it is something that every parent needs to read. So this is the studies showing the link between vaccinations and SIDS and the timing of most SIDS deaths, which spikes, the SIDS deaths spike at 2 months, 4 months, also on the first day of life. We, in the US, give more vaccines to infants. We give 26, actually 30 if you include the pregnancy vaccines in there. In the first year of life, and we also have the highest infant death rate, and we're going to go into those stats in a minute, but also the highest infant mortality rate on the first day, and we're one of the only few countries that actually give vaccines on the first day. So anyway, Jane, why don't we look at some real science? Because you accuse us anti-vaxxers of not looking at the science and not reading science and all of that good stuff, and my background in biochemistry beats your background in journalism, I guarantee you, any day. Plus, I learned to read the science from those who make the science, and like Merck, right? And there's a lot of that science out there that you're reading that is basically paid for marketing with a scientist, researcher's name on it that they pay very well for. Anyway, here are some studies that are not pharma funded. And there you go. Here is some real research. Jane, next time you do an article, I would love if you referenced learntherisk.org and this specific page if you're going to talk about SIDS, because we got to show parents this, you know? I mean, this is what's going to save babies. So thank you for all the free advertising. At least they're going to come to the website, and that's going to save some babies for sure. But next time, please reference these awesome real studies done by independent doctors and scientists that are not willing to take pharma money and print bullshit, basically. And I really hope you don't either, because, you know, some people say that you do, but I would never say that about you. Because, I mean, look, you gave us so much free advertising. So that was really awesome. Anyway, here we go. Some of the science. Sudden infant death syndrome mortality rate in the period 0 to 3 days following DDP was 7.3 times higher than in the period 30 days after immunization. Let's look at the real science, right? And I hope every parent sees this before they take their babies to the doctors. All right, sudden infant death case associated with hexavalent. Hepatitis B linked to anaphylactic shock and death in infants. Twin boys simultaneously, oh, that's a hard word. Anyway, sudden infant death 2 to 3 hours after vaccination. Twins, okay, it doesn't happen in twins, right? Both of them don't have blankets covering their mouths at the same time, in different positions, probably sleeping wise. This is not a case of random coincidence, okay? This is the vaccines. So here we go. Sudden infant death after vaccination. DDP, sudden infant death. Well-researched article on SIDS. Study showed 6 times increase in febrile seizures within 24 hours of DDP and a 3-fold increase of febrile seizures after the MMR. All right. Basically, these are all peer-reviewed scientific studies. There are hundreds more. I just, only have so much time in the day to put them on the website. But we're going to go into more, okay? So I have a few questions for Jane because she didn't seem to have gone on to our SIDS page on learntherisk.org and actually look at the real research and the studies that aren't funded by pharma. She seems to kind of, I don't know, maybe read a few too many pharma press releases in her time in journalism. So we're going to ask some questions. Jane, if vaccines are so good and the U.S. gives 26 of them in the first year of life, more than, I'm not sure about exactly Australia's numbers, but more than most developed countries. I'm going to come back here for a minute. More than most developed countries. And we give 4 in utero to pregnant women. So we're looking at 30 shots in the first year of life, right? So that's more than most countries. So the U.S. should have the healthiest babies, right? Because if vaccines are so healthy and vaccines are keeping us healthy and they're so safe, the U.S. should have the lowest infant mortality rate, right? Because the U.S. already spends more per capita on healthcare than any other country. So if vaccines are so healthy, our babies should be the healthiest too, okay? Not quite. So let's look at that. Back around, and I'm going to show you a Washington Post article a couple years back. The U.S. lags behind other wealthy nations on infant mortality. Look at this. This is not a coincidence. Oops, it's getting smaller. Trying to make it bigger. Oop, that made it really small. All right, we'll just go to the webpage. So the article is called, "Our Infant Mortality Rate is a National Embarrassment. The U.S. lags behind other wealthy nations in infant mortality." This is the U.S. compared to other developed nations. 6.1, okay? We are behind the U.S. I'm going to read from the article. This is the Washington Post, guys. Jane, you're a journalist. You should totally read this article, and you should understand what you're really talking about. All right, the United States has a higher infant mortality rate than any of the other 27 wealthy nations, according to a new report from the Vaccine Patent Holding Center for Disease Control. All right, so don't believe me, Jane. Believe your, sacred CDC that says the U.S. has a higher infant mortality rate than any of the other 27 wealthy countries in the report, okay? We have the worst infant mortality rate. If all of these vaccines are keeping our babies healthy, why don't we have the best and have less babies dying per capita in the first year than any other country? So we'll continue. A baby born in the U.S. is nearly 3 times as likely to die during her first year of life as one born in Finland or Japan, who do not have nearly the same vaccine schedule. So how is that happen? How does the U.S. give more vaccines per capita to babies than any other country, yet we have the sickest babies and we have more die, right? Because if vaccines are so safe and healthy, we would have less infants dying compared to other countries that don't have as many vaccines. All right, well, I'll show you why. Because this is what the schedule looks like. So Jane, I'm not sure you've seen this, I'm speaking to Jane, the Australian journalist who writes these bashing articles about anti-vaxxers and gave learntherist.org some really free press. So Jane, still, thank you, but I do think you need to do a little bit more research. So here you go. Here is why we have the highest infant mortality rate of developed world, or the developed nations. Don't believe me, it was in the Washington Post article from a report from the CDC, your sacred CDC. This is why, because we give more vaccines, okay? It is not a coincidence that we have the sickest babies and that we have more babies dying in their first year of life than any other country in the developed world. It's because this is what our schedule looks like. But if you don't believe me, you still think it's a coincidence, Jane, here, let's look at these lovely ingredients, none of which should be injected into our children, all of which cause harm. There is a lot of science behind this, a lot of science showing that these things cause harm, especially in animals. And we are injecting these into our children, and it leads to all types of issues, and including SIDS and death. All right, so if it's still a coincidence, then let's look at Mississippi. So Mississippi has the highest rate of vaccination in the US, okay? So Mississippi has the nation's best child vaccination rates. So if it's still a coincidence, then Mississippi also should have the healthiest children, right? Well, guess what, guys? Mississippi's infant death rate right here, according to the cdc.gov, this is infant mortality rate by state. Mississippi is 9.3, okay? 9.3, it is one of the worst infant mortality rates in the US. So Mississippi's giving more vaccines to their children. They have the highest vaccine rate. So again, their children should be healthiest, but they're not. They're dying more than other states, okay? So again, US has more vaccines given to babies than any other developed country and has the highest infant mortality rate. Why would this be happening if vaccines are so safe and healthy? Well, everybody says, oh no, that's just a coincidence, even though I'm using government figures. But that's not a coincidence, because look, if you're looking at Mississippi, and this is from the CDC, this is infant mortality rate by state, okay? So Mississippi has one of the highest infant mortality rates because they are, like I said, has the best vaccination rate. The highest vaccination rate means more babies dying. It's clear. But still not convinced. Okay, well, we're going to look at Colorado for a second, because Colorado has half of the risk of babies dying than Mississippi. So half as many babies die in Colorado, right? 4.6, one of the best in the US. So more babies live there. Well, let's look at what else Colorado's really good at. Oh, not there yet. Back to this article, which talks about Colorado having the most medical exemptions and the highest unvaccinated population, okay? So this is back to that Washington Post article that talks about Mississippi having the highest rate of vaccination in the country, and this is for DTaP particularly. And then Colorado has the lowest rate of children vaccinated for DTaP, and DTaP is given at 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months, okay? So if Colorado you would think would, you know, these babies aren't protected, right? So they would have very high infant mortality rate, all of those babies dying of pertussis that they tried to scare us about. Well, there is Colorado's infant mortality rate. It is half of Mississippi's, which has the highest vaccination rate in the states. I mean, I know I'm a little bit long-winded here, guys, but I'm tired of people calling this a coincidence. You know, apples are apples. Call it like it is. Vaccines are not keeping babies healthy, and they are killing some children. It is what it is. But, all right, don't believe me. Vaccine court rules SIDS death caused by 4-month vaccinations. Oh, well, we'll get into the studies in a minute. But we're going to get into this. More and more studies. There was I believe this was August or July, the actual vaccine court ruled that vaccines caused the death, well, were a significant cause of the death of baby JB, who died a day within 24 hours, I believe, of receiving his vaccinations. Okay, so this was in the United States Court of Federal Claims. This is the vaccine court, July 10th, 2017. Basically, the US government fought these parents, okay? They fought them to try and say, no, it was not the vaccines that killed your baby. The judge decided differently. And guess what vaccine he was given? DTaP. Given at 2, 4, and 6 months. All right. Died of sudden infant death syndrome. Well, there's some really good bits in here, but I'm just going to have to go to the end. 56 pages down. Bear with me. One of these days, it's gonna be even more technical, and I won't have to scroll down. But here it goes. In this case, I have concluded. This is the judge writing. In this case, I have concluded after a review of the evidence, including evidence given by the United States government against these parents that said the vaccines killed their son. After a review of that evidence, I have concluded that it is more likely than not that vaccines played a substantial causal role in the death of JB, without the effect of which he would not have died. Okay? And then it goes on to talk about inflammatory cytokines. Again, I have to repeat this. This is the vaccine court judge. Vaccines played a substantial causal role in the death of JB, without the effect of which he would not have died. This death, JB's death, was ruled SIDS, okay? SIDS is a catch-all term when doctors cannot determine why a child died. It is not a syndrome. It is a catch-all label, and many of those children were vaccinated within days of their deaths. So, again, the facts are there. The stats are there. You cannot turn a blind eye to this. And here we go. These are some of the reports. What does the evidence show? This is an interesting article because this talks a lot about that there is well, there is causal relation between some vaccines and anaphylactic shock, which can cause death. These right here, this is a list. This is a list of some of the studies that show death after vaccination. Right here, deaths reported to the VAERS reporting system. This is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. This is a great one as well. This one, 2,149 deaths in those years from mid-97 until end of 2013. So we're looking at 16 years, and we know that most of these deaths are not reported, but there were over 2,000 death reports, 68% in children, and the median was 6 months old. Males accounted for 57 of those reports. Most common causes of death among the 1,244 children that were reported as dying right after vaccines was sudden infant death. Okay? SIDS is a cover-up for babies who are dying from shock, apnea, asphyxia, from whatever it is that are in the vaccines that are killing them. They're dying from the toxic overload, and sudden infant death syndrome is a label for that. So, again, I'm going to go back to the article. I do want to thank you, Jane, for this free advertising, because seriously, I don't think I could have reached at least a couple million people free. I mean, that's amazing. And getting that out there in front of millions of people and millions of parents, that's going to save lives. So thank you so much for putting that in the Sunday Telegraph, which is the largest newspaper in Australia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm grateful to you, all of these babies whose parents are actually going to go to the website and see what the reality of vaccines is and the damage that they're doing. I mean, you've saved lives. So thank you so much for that. This is amazing. And again, I hope every parent goes to the website and looks at the studies that aren't funded by pharma and looks at what's really going on, the infant mortality rates in the US. Don't let Australia become the US. Don't let European nations become the US. This is what you're looking at. Again, the US gives more vaccines in the first year of life than any other developed country, 26 plus, well, 27 if you count the double flu shot, and plus 4 in utero. If vaccines are so healthy, why are so many children dying? Why do we have the highest infant mortality rate? And you know what? It's not just in the first year of life. We also have the highest infant mortality rate on the first day of birth, when the hepatitis B shot is given in the hospital to newborns within 24 hours of birth. This is not a coincidence. The facts are there. We cannot turn a blind eye to this. The US has a higher infant mortality rate than any of the 27 other wealthy countries, according to the CDC report. This is not fair. Our children deserve more. And pharmaceutical companies are lying to parents, and doctors are doing it. Doctors have blood on their hands when they give this many vaccines in childhood. And so many babies are dying, around 10,000 a year. And again, please go back, watch this entire video. I show that it is not a coincidence because Mississippi, again, has the highest rate of vaccination in their children, and they have one of the highest infant mortality rate of all states in the US. Colorado has the least vaccinated infants, and it has one of the lowest. Half of the infant mortality rate is Mississippi. So again, guys, this is using all government data, and this is not a cover-up. This is not propaganda, as Jane likes to call it. This is the facts, and this is the reality. Over 2,000 death reports in 16 years, and we all know that most deaths are not reported to the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, and most of these were sudden infant death syndrome labeled. Again, it's not a syndrome, it's a label. These are the facts. And again, the vaccine court in July concluded that vaccines did cause the death of JB. And again, the government was trying to convince the court that the parents were wrong. The vaccines did not kill their healthy infant baby within 24 hours of receiving all of these vaccines. It was labeled sudden infant death. But you know what? The judge saw all of the government's science. They saw all of the government's science, probably given to them by the pharmaceutical companies, and yet he concluded, in this case, I have concluded after a review of the evidence that it is more likely than not that vaccines played a substantial causal role in the death of JB, without the effect of which he would not have died. JB would be alive today if he did not get vaccinated. That is what the judge said after seeing all of the evidence, even given to him by the U.S. government, which holds over 20 patents on vaccines. So at some point, we just have to call the U.S. government another vaccine company. But again, that's what the judge in this federal U.S. court concluded. And I think that the evidence is clear. I think there is no way that we can call it a coincidence anymore. And I hope that every single parent that saw that article, thanks again, Jane, for all the free advertising, goes to Learn the Risk and realizes what is going on. This is a huge cover-up. And tomorrow, we are announcing another report that was published back in August, September in the Indian Journal for Medical Ethics, which shows that GlaxoSmithKline conveniently excluded some SIDS death from their official reports that they gave to the European Medicines Agency. These things are happening. This is a huge cover-up. This is an epidemic cover-up by the pharmaceutical companies and vaccine makers to convince parents that vaccines are safe when they are not, and babies are dying. So please share this video. Please educate every way you can. Go to learntherisk.org. We have a great section with lots of ideas on how to get out there. Please help us get billboards up everywhere. Please help get this information to parents whose children deserve to live, okay? They do not deserve to be sacrificed for pharmaceutical greed. So please get this video out there. Please go to learntherisk.org. Please share. Please follow our stuff. Please donate so we can continue to reach more and more parents and save more children. Please. Thank you. And once again, thank you, Jane Hansen, for the awesome free advertising. I couldn't have done it myself. Thank you. Learntherisk.org. That's where you need to go for the real research. Thanks for watching.